We're going to find out a lot about the Dodgers this weekend. The first place San Diego Padres are in town tonight to kick off a 3-game series against the Dodgers. The Dodgers, who have lost 4 in a row and 21 of their last 33, are a game behind the Padres in the NL West. This series could be a turning point for the Dodgers this season. Are they still a championship team, or are they a team with a bunch of high-profile players who simply are not getting the job done? We will find out this weekend. The NBA schedule is out. The Lakers will be at home for their regular season opener against Golden State on October 21st. This will be the 23rd NBA season for LeBron. The Lakers are on the Christmas Day schedule against Houston. The Clippers' first regular season game is October 22nd at Utah. The LA Sparks are back in action today on the road. They take on the Dallas Wings. 4:30 tip-off LA time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Give people what they want.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black out the Dina is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at KBLA1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So, go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
And this is what it feels like. And this is what it feels like. The only reason I survive, cause it's special first. You get successful, then it gets stressful thirst. Gonna test you, see what your texture's worth. Diamonds and pipes, one of them pressure burst. Street, still I get checks and spurts. I'm for peace, but before I get pressed, I'm murked. Better days prayed for, but expecting worse. At this level, boy, I'm just less concerned. Cruising in the 6, looking at the proceeds of rap music on my wrist. Drop another mixtape, my booming out this young Malcolm. I'm the leader of the movement out this love. And this is what it feels like. Reach a level, make you question, is it real life? All of good, all of real tight. And the only rule, keep your dollar bills and right. This is what it feels like.
KBLA Talk 1580. This is what reparations feels like. Happy birthday, Nipsey Hussle. Happy birthday, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. It is time for Freedmen Friday. It's a comprehensive reparations conversation ongoing for almost 2 years now that we do around here because we want to be part of the solution, part of the education, and definitely push the progress on this very, very important issue. We're being joined now by a Chicago businessman. He's a real estate investor. He's owned and managed over 100 residential units in Inglewood, Auburn, Gresham, Washington Park, and Roseland. And he is, aside from being an entrepreneur, an internationally respected activist in the reparations space. In 2014, he was invited to speak on a new paradigm of reparations activism at the 8th Pan-African Conference in Johannesburg, South Africa. Also an author and much, much more. Kamm Howard, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Sister Dominique. It's a pleasure, and thank you for inviting me back.
Man, there's just even with the 12 kinds of crazy that's going on in Washington, D.C., there's a lot of movement still happening in this reparations arena, is there not?
There is quite a bit of movement, quite a bit of energy, quite a bit of action. Yeah, it's still going on. Most of it is centered around local reparations, but there's still things that we can do federally, even in this midst of the crazy, as you call it.
Yeah, well, I was talking with Dr. Gerald Horn on yesterday, and he was really excited about the CARICOM reparations conference coming up in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, next month. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a very important conference. We came out of the 2024 reparations conference that was held in Ghana, where there was a connection between the African Union and CARICOM. These are states, nation states that are governed by, primarily led by people of African descent in the Caribbean, as well as on the continent. At the 2024 conference, we made reference that we appreciated and really celebrated this connection, but it was leaving out those of us who were not nation states, those of us who had been damaged, harmed through the transatlantic slave trade. That existed in settler states like the United States, like Brazil, and some of the other South American countries, and even our brothers and sisters in Europe. So we felt that it was limiting and not exclusive, but certainly our brothers and sisters at CARICOM, we have a great relationship with them. The National African American Reparations Commission, NARC, and the CARICOM Reparations Commission are brother sister organizations. We coalesce often, and they raised that issue up as well, that there was not a good feeling of being excluded from the Ethiopian conference that's coming up. But we're excited about it, and we hope that our interests also will be represented.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because a lot of the times when we're talking about reparations in a global aspect here on Freedmen Friday, and also conversations that I see online, there appears to be confusion around what CARICOM is doing and what their role is, particularly vis-a-vis American freedmen, or, Black Americans, and our fight for reparations.
Yeah, CARICOM is in unison, is in solidarity with our struggle. The CARICOM community of states formed the CARICOM Reparations Commission. Their commission is designed to go after the European governments that colonized that area of the Americas and enslaved their ancestors, and continue to extract resources from them after the period of enslavement through domestic colonialism on the continent. So their struggle is against Europe, Britain, France, the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, Portugal, etc. But our struggle is, to the American government. So, they're in solidarity with us. We utilize some of the same foundational knowledge and research, because all of these enslavers were part of a European wide network, and they shared knowledge, shared resources, weaponry, etc., amongst each other to carry out their crimes.
Yeah, I almost feel like asking you to say that again, because I feel like, Kamm Howard, that it is confusing, because this slave trade, if you want to call it that, the human trafficking of the chattel slavery, is worldwide, and not everyone understands how it played out, and where people landed and why they landed there and who profited. But I think the complaint that I get is people feel that these CARICOM is all of the Caribbean nations coming together, just to be clear for those who aren't familiar, that somehow that CARICOM would be seeking reparations from our government, the United States government, or would somehow undermine or impede our claim on reparations?
Yeah, that's absolutely false. They understand who the culprit is that from which they inherited harms from their ancestors' atrocities, and those culprits are the European governments that govern those islands. America, did not govern the Caribbean islands. Although after enslavement, you can say that they had a big hand in Haiti. And
Cuba.
Now the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, Cuba as well, after enslavement. But for enslavement and genocide, CARICOM's reparations for Native genocide and enslavement. And so they're going after, again, the European nations. They're not, have no plans or there's no activity and never has been any activity about coming after America for reparations. So that's been really a mis. It's been a falsehood that's been perpetrated in the reparations movement that CARICOM wants our reparations. Even those brothers and sisters who have immigrated from the Caribbean here in America, they've never stated they wanted to take a claim for American enslavement. It was always they would be incorporated into the CARICOM reparations fund, or however it was received, however it's going to be received. That's where their redress would be gotten from enslavement. However, we also know that once you came here to America, if you came in the Jim Crow period or after, there were some crimes that were committed, and they may have been subject to those, as we know that Malcolm X's mother and others, Marcus Garvey and others, were subjected to the crime of Jim Crow apartheid, and they would be eligible for redress for those periods of crimes, but certainly not enslavement era crimes.
So, to be clear, if you were a Caribbean immigrant, you came here, you could be eligible for redress or restitution if your property was stolen or, based on your ethnicity or your phenotype, but you would not be making a claim for reparations based on your enslavement or the debt that's owed to us regarding, the post-Civil War repair that was supposed to happen. So I think
Exactly.
I think it's important because I've had people say, well, those folks, those meaning Caribbean immigrants that are here now, should go to CARICOM for the reparations, and that's probably actually correct, right?
That's right, for enslavement-based reparations. The key to reparations, when people are losing sight of it, is that criminal acts have been committed against people of African descent for 600 years in the West. And for each of those periods, there have been victims. And there's been descendants of those victims who are also inherited the impact, who suffer the harms from those particular crimes. So anyone who's been victimized or inherited a crime from someone who's victimized through the 600-year period of atrocities committed against the phenotype that's African or Black is eligible for redress for those specific crimes or the inherited impact.
Yeah.
If they were not victimized by a particular crime or not suffering from a continued impact of a particular crime or period of crimes, then they have no redress. Everything is determined by the continued impact of the victimization of the crime. And so, yeah.
When we come forward, I want to get your thoughts about the AU piece, because you were speaking on the CARICOM and the African Union connecting in Ghana, and reparations, I know, is part of what they call Agenda 2063. Want to get your thoughts, and maybe you can break it down to us. We're talking with Kamm Howard on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Good morning, Doctor.
Doctor?
Hi, Doctor.
Doctor?
Dr. Jackson's practice is growing.
What do you mean we're still short-staffed?
He needs a good patient doctor.
How do we not have enough doctors to doctor all these patients?
And he doesn't have the patience to sift through hundreds of resumes.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions, like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Happy Freedmen Friday. And look, we interrupt this reparatory conversation to announce, in celebration of Nipsey Hussle's 40th birthday, Metro has launched their 2 limited series tap cards paying tribute to his life, legacy, and cultural impact on L.A., and KBLA Talk 1580, First Things First, has those free tap cards. It's travel for 9 months. It's worth $600 plus, and you're getting some KBLA swag. It launches today, and we have got one of those $600 plus tap cards plus KBLA swag for you right now to caller 40 in honor of Nipsey's 40th birthday at 800-920-1580. They're renaming Hyde Park Station to Nipsey Hussle Station from August 15th to the 31st. And you can get these cards at selected metro stations, or you can get it by being caller 40 right now at 800-920-1580. You'll have to go to Hyde Park, Crenshaw, Slauson, Compton, Hollywood Vine, or Expo Crenshaw to pick one up, or you can be caller 40 right now. Happy birthday, Nipsey Hussle. Happy birthday, Congresswoman Waters. Kamm Howard is my guest on a Freedmen Friday. And you mentioned, Mr. Howard, the synergy between the African Union reparations interest and the CARICOM interest, which came, you said, out of the Ghana conference in 2024. Talk to me about, just as we were speaking on how the Caribbean has their initiative and their own targets for reparations, the African Union, what is their scope, reparatory scope, and how is this all tied into Agenda 2063?
So just recently, actually that conference in Ghana was 2023, but there was a preparatory conference with the African Union, I think it was in Barbados in 2022 with CARICOM, the African Union CARICOM. So in 2023, they actually formalized a union of sorts in order to come up with what they call a common position on reparations. At that conference, I was speaking on a panel, and there were presidents there and all the leaders of the AU in regards to reparations, and I called particular attention to the erasure of Black Americans and brothers and sisters in Europe, that the reparations movement, when I speak on a panel on advocacy, and if you want to engage in advocacy, you have to begin with America, because we are the leaders in advocacy on redress from these criminals. And so when my comments quieted the entire room, there was some negative feedback by the gentleman who had funded the conference. And what we see is that effort is still going on, where there's kind of erasure and non-inclusion of the American voices. And so this whole process of the AU to come up with this shared African global position in reparations, it's more around development for African nations that have experienced underdevelopment from the European government. So when you look at, which is mostly colonial crimes, but again, CARICOM is looking at enslavement era crimes as well as colonial era crimes or post-enslavement era crimes. But they have identified their development, their redress as development reparations. And it's the same with Africa. It's how do you give money to these countries to assist them in developing economically? We hold a position that as people of African descent in these settler nations like the United States and Brazil and Europe and Canada and Colombia and elsewhere, that we need redress specifically directed toward the people, not toward government institutions and government policies, economic policies. We understand that those things are necessary, but the harms are internal and independent and personal harms that we suffer from. Not only wealth disparities, but health disparities and educational disparities and all of that, all those other things that we suffer from. So we need to be at those tables, and we're fighting to make sure that we are invited. There is an invitation being presented that would get me and I think Dr. Daniels there in Ethiopia, so that we can make sure that our issues are raised in these spaces. So how it affects Agenda 2063 is that coming out of the African liberation struggles, for about 50 years, these nations were simply trying to become national entities, non-colonial entities, build nations out of several different ethnic groups. Most of these countries have 10, 15, some 30, 40 different ethnic groups that they had to build a national character, personality, and develop structures and institutions to serve all of the people. So they spent 20, 30, 40, 50 years doing that, just putting together a political framework, and neglected the economic framework, which we see now there's a tremendous amount of activity targeted toward the economic framework. How do you have the world's richest continent, the world's richest land, and you have the poorest people? You have the most less educated people. You have the more health disparities, health issues on the continent that has the richest resources. So those contradictions are forcing these countries to deal with the economic issues, economic freedom, because they're still, enslaved by these European nations economically. And we see the youth in these countries really rising up. So that's really the basis of 2063, is economic independence, and reparations is playing a huge part. They just established the AU have extended the year of reparations to the decade of reparations. But again, it's focusing on economic development for the African continent and the Caribbean nations primarily, and we need to have our voices there.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. It's called 2063 because that's just a year that they picked, that the African Union picked 2063 as Agenda 2063. But it's not just around reparations; it's around development, you say. And so I'm trying to figure out what is. I mean, I'm all for the development of African nations and sort of the debt that's owed to them by colonial Europe. But is that reparations? Because it sounds like it's a response to colonialism.
Well,
it's not a response.
Was a crime.
Yeah, I understood, but I mean,
it was a criminal period.
Understood, but draw the line with enslavement and Jim Crow, and I mean, or is that their Jim Crow? I mean, is that reparations? Is the question.
Sure. So in 2001, at the World Conference Against Racism that was held in Durban, South Africa, the global community of states declared that the transatlantic slave trade, that system, enslavement, that system, colonialism, that system, apartheid, that system, and all the actions that flowed from those systems were crimes against humanity. And that there's a continued impact from all of those crimes and periods of crimes. And as such, since there's continued impact, under international law, there's an obligation for reparations. So we experienced enslavement, Black Americans, freedmen, ADOS, however we choose to call ourselves. We experienced enslavement. We also experienced apartheid. It was called Jim Crow in America, but it was technically, legally, under the international law definition, we experienced 100 years of apartheid. And we're experiencing, and our brothers and sisters in the 60s and 70s said we were experiencing ghetto colonialism, which if you look at what that actually colonialism is, we were actually experiencing that in these inner cities in the 70s, which sparked the revolution in the 1960s and 70s. So we experienced all of these crimes, and for us, our reparations is from every one of these periods and all the actions that flow from them. For the African nations, colonialism, that entire period from the 1890s when they carved up Africa until 1957, was Ghana got its first independence, on up until like 1998 or so. I think Sudan was liberated, Southern Sudan. That was a criminal period from which reparations are due to the continental Africans from all the crimes that happened through colonialism. But it's because the World Conference Against Racism that colonialism was called a crime against humanity, which it was, that reparations also served the African continent in that capacity.
Okay, we've got news, traffic, and sports here. A lot of great stuff you've brought up that we can really, really dive into. One of the things I want to talk about is, what is the AU doing around this, and what is the sixth region? You kind of referenced it when you were speaking on your speech, but we'll get a little bit of clarity on that and more. It's a Freedmen Friday. We're talking reparations like we do every Friday on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Alexandria Ikamoni with BIN News Now. Former President Barack Obama argues Americans not to take their freedoms for granted, warning that gerrymandering threatens the foundation of fair elections. This comes as he supports Texas Democrats who left the state to block a GOP redistricting plan.
I think we became a little bit complacent over the years. We assumed that things would continue to get better. Our democracy would become more inclusive, that it would become more fair, that we'd make it easier for people to vote rather than harder for people to vote.
A legal fight over transgender student bathroom access in South Carolina may head to the U.S. Supreme Court. The case centers a transgender student who was denied use of the boys' bathroom during the last school year. Cleveland Browns black rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders is capturing the attention of the nation. It's reported the Browns' win over the Carolina Panthers set the NFL Network preseason viewership record with over 2.2 million tuning in. Get BIN News Now on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
We're going to find out a lot about the Dodgers this weekend. The first place San Diego Padres are in town tonight to kick off a 3-game series against the Dodgers. The Dodgers, who have lost 4 in a row and 21 of their last 33, are a game behind the Padres in the NL West. This series could be a turning point for the Dodgers this season. Are they still a championship team, or are they a team with a bunch of high-profile players who simply are not getting the job done? We will find out this weekend. The NBA schedule is out. The Lakers will be at home for their regular season opener against Golden State on October 21st. This will be the 23rd NBA season for LeBron. The Lakers are on the Christmas Day schedule against Houston. The Clippers' first regular season game is October 22nd at Utah. The LA Sparks are back in action today on the road. They take on the Dallas Wings. 4:30 tip-off LA time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
Paul's new drone startup just lost its most genius computer scientist.
We just lost our best genius to some new genius who's got a genius new idea. I'm going to have to find a new genius, or 2 half geniuses, and fast.
He needs a computer scientist that can keep his startup from falling down.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 this year. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, and I had questions, like when to enroll and how to enroll. So I went straight to the official source, Medicare.gov, to get the facts about Medicare. I found answers to all my questions, and I'm ready to get started. And so can you. Just go to Medicare.gov to get the real facts about Medicare.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts, guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay, things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're talking with Kamm Howard. He's internationally known for his reparations work. I mentioned the speech in 2014 and 2016. He was a key organizer for the United States visit of the United Nations Working Group of experts for people of African descent, a co-leader of their Chicago visit, 16-year member of NCOBRA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, and a member of the National African American Reparations Commission, NARC. Kamm Howard, talk to me about the 6th region. This is the African Union's designation of people who are not in Africa, but who are considered part of the African Union. Is that a fair description?
That's what it's supposed to be. It hasn't developed yet. In 2002, the African Union developed from the Organization of African Unity, and they were organized around 5 regions on the continent: North Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, and South Africa, and the countries that are in those geographic zones. And a year later, they determined that the diaspora was a part of continental, a part of global Africa, and that the 6th region, there should be a 6th region of non-continental Africa, those who live outside of the continent, and that they should form a structure with and policy from which to populate the secretariat that will represent the diaspora. At that time, it was the diaspora was really defined as those who had been taken away from the continent by force, their ancestors and the descendants of those who had been taken away by force, who were living in Europe, living in the Americas, South Central and North America. And then it later became to include many of the expatriates that left the continent and moved to the West. And there began to be more of a representation of expatriates speaking for the diaspora voice than those of us who are known as the historical diaspora. There's not been a 6th region officially developed. We were led by Brother Safiwe Baleka about a year ago and trying to formulate it on our own according to the AU's principles, and they didn't accept our efforts. And so now there's supposed to be a reinvigoration of a policy or a set of policies from which we can form our structure to be part of all the African Union discussions and dialogue. But as of right now, the 6th region, it's only a name. It does not exist as far as a body of advocates.
Interesting. Looking at this, the AU description of it, on their website, and they certainly sounds like it's something that's active, but that kind of brings me to another point, which is, I've traveled. So my 7th trip to Africa, we went this year to Nigeria, Benin, and Ghana.
Okay.
We a group of folks are affiliated with the radio stations that I work at. People sign up and we go. We had 52 folks come this year, and we met with the king in Benin and another Alake Aviokuta in Nigeria. And there's a lot of conversation about, welcoming us in and allowing us to have citizenship and considering us to be their lost children. But when you're on the ground talking to those leaders, away from just the speeches and pronouncements, what I hear more of is, we need you to come and help us develop our nations, which I don't have a problem with that. But in the context of reparations, it's that discussion seems to be absent or undeveloped.
Yeah, so undeveloped. There's more. Now take the case of Burkina Faso, which is a whole new and different set of dynamics, where you have Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, who have formed an alliance, a military alliance, which is now developing into an economic alliance and a political alliance that is totally liberating the African resources that were controlled by these colonial governments and utilizing them for the people. They have a process or a program that is asking Africans in the West to come, and they give them citizenship. But they say, we don't need your money because we got all our money. We got all these resources. We got all this gold. We got all this magnesium. We got all these rare minerals. So we don't need your money. We need your skills. And you bring your skills over here to help us rebuild. Now, that's different than in Nigeria and some of these other countries that says, bring your resources. When they say they want us to help them develop, they want us to bring resources. So those are the dynamics that we have to navigate through when we look at relocating.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. And I'm not mad at either one of them, but it doesn't actually have anything to do with reparations for the harms of enslavement. Maybe you could draw the line to colonialism. So here's a question that is, posed a lot. Like, what does Africa owe reparations to others, African Americans or people in the Caribbean? And what's that dynamic?
Sure. So back to the first question, I'll definitely deal with that. Part of reparations is to reestablish our cultural heritage and identity. So welcoming us back, giving us citizenship is a reparative under the aspect of rehabilitation or satisfaction. Mm-hmm. So that is actual reparations, to grant citizenship, free citizenship, without even a DNA test. If you want to come back, we can do that, as long as you follow certain policies, whatever.
Right.
So that is reparations.
And
so
who is doing that now?
Africa,
it's I know Ghana, I think Kenya. Who else is doing that now? Do you know?
Burkina Faso, Togo. I think the brother, one of the rappers, I can't think of his name. He went back to, I think it was Togo. But
I know Benin just. I know Benin just granted Sierra and maybe Spike Lee and his wife. I know they're spokespersons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Ludacris. That was Ludacris that went, I think, to Togo and got his citizenship and his family. Okay. So a lot of African nations, probably about 15 or so now, have opened it up, and then more if you can show a DNA test that brings you back there. I think they're all welcome to that. But there's a few countries that it doesn't matter, what your DNA is.
Right.
You can, like Ghana and Burkina Faso was one.
Yes.
So in regards to does African owe us reparations, that's an interesting, what we are trying to do with this new narrative, because, the European, what's one of the European arguments? When they say that we're not paying Africans owe you reparations, they sold you, blah, blah, blah. What we found in our research, and more research is coming up, is that 99% of the Africans who were sold by Africans was through forced arrangements. If you're subjugated and you're either you're going to die or you're going to be shipped away unless you engage in this, then people engage. And under international law, again, I try to take things back to the law area. If you are being subjugated and forced by another entity to engage in criminal behavior, then that other entity is you're not non-responsible, but that other entity is the lead responsible entity for those crimes. And so it was always the Europeans who forced these African nations into engaging in these criminal actions against their own people.
I'm sure that happened, but we also know that some. I've seen evidence of it with my own eyes on the continent, that some traded people for guns because they wanted those guns to have advantages in their own imperial aspirations, with interethnic fighting in Africa. So some of it was not coerced. Some of it was good old imperialist, ambition.
Right, and that was not at that particular large part of the time, that was not a Pan-African identity where people believed themselves to be all Africans were united in one people. That developed later. And so, that definitely was there. But we know that for 200-300 years, the Kingdom of Benin, not the Republic of Benin, I think you went to the Kingdom of Benin when you were there, for at least 300 years, they were engaged in the process of enslaving Africans.
The Dahomey people.
So, those kingdoms, and they're not all over the African continent. There are some specific kingdoms that were responsible, not just these nation states, right, that were responsible, and that there's an opportunity to have discussion with them. This is the same type of reparations that we're looking for from the Europeans, no, but there is an avenue of having conversations around repair with these African nations. And, you know, they're still in a dysfunctional state in most cases because of the colonial legacy. So
that's a really strong point, because who are you even negotiating with at that point? But it's, you know, it has to be part of the conversation. I feel like the first visit that we did to Ghana in 2016, to the door of no return, the scholars there at least acknowledged, you know, the culpability of certain nations, and also the regret at not, you know, having done more to try to intervene. I mean, I know they didn't have planes; they couldn't come over here and try to snatch us back. But having tried to do more, there was less of that this visit. But I think the conversation is important.
And then, as historical research, that there were groups of African ethnicities that traveled the coast of Africa, attempting to disrupt the trade for hundreds of years. I mean, there's never been a time we have not resisted enslavement, but that story has not been told. Yes, there was complicity, but also there was resistance.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the scholars I talked to this trip said that they believe that for every African that was captured and taken here, 53 died trying to stop it. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of depopulation, a lot of murder on the continent. I was just in a chat yesterday. We were sharing how it was the depopulation of Africa through the chattelization wars that sent our ancestors here that allowed Africa to be colonized in such a way that it was. The millions and millions who were murdered just to get the millions, hundreds of millions over here. There were millions murdered, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times that.
Kamm Howard is my guest. It's Freedmen Friday. I want to talk about where you are with solutions when we come forward, where you are with actions, what you're calling upon us to do as we continue our quest for reparations now. KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LAC-JCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. The Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders
reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
And we are talking reparations. It's a Freedmen Friday, and we're blessed to have Kamm Howard with us, who is internationally respected reparations activist and author. Before last year, before the fateful election, we were pushing. We joined you in pushing for Biden to go ahead and do legislation or executive action along the lines of H.R. 40 to establish national or federal study of some kind. That didn't happen. What's the next call to action? Where are we now?
So we still thank you, and it's a blessing to have you on the radio speaking weekly to this issue. Truly, you are a blessing to all of us in this country.
Thank you.
We're still pushing at the executive level. We don't believe anything's going to happen at the judicial branch or with the legislative branch anytime soon. There is possibility at the executive branch. We established just recently the Federal Redress Advancement Network. This is a network of activists, scholars, et cetera, who are looking at single-issue redress policies that we can push through various departments within the federal government. Right before Biden left, he pardoned a Native American prisoner. Sorry, his name is slipping right now. And he extended an apology to the Native Americans for boarding school crimes. That happened because within the Department of Interior, they went through a series of investigations around the single issue. Leonard Peltier, right, who was a boarding school victim at the age of 9 years old. But they looked at this singular crime that happened by the federal government that was orchestrated by a particular department within the federal government, and it later led to a series of reparatory efforts by the federal government. So we looked at that and we said, well, there's a possibility for us to put single issues at each department, at some departments within the federal government, show the distinct federal unlawfulness within these departments that have led to current harms we're experiencing, and formulate a particular redress action for that particular single issue. And so we're looking at every department within the federal at the executive branch. We know that not only having this documented evidence of harm, of crime, and the documented evidence of continued harm from these crimes, that's not going to be enough. So the key issue here is that we must show the actual return on investment. And for every dollar that's given that's targeted toward these initiatives, how much would this government receive in return? We believe that this particular method will move President Trump, who's a transactional type of dude. Whatever he can get out of something, if he can make a deal, and show that his thinking benefits America in any type of way, we think he can be moved by that. But again, we have to show, first we have to look at what department we're going to target, what laws that they broke, what injury that we still are impacted from those unlawful actions, and then how much return can this government get by targeting resources at those actions. And so anybody can go to reparationsunited.org, sign your name up if you can do some research around a particular department, if you could have some economic background that can show return on investment, if you want to, if you have a particular issue at a particular department that you want to lift up, then we certainly want you to come get involved. We believe that we can get some redress actions within the next 1 to 2 years from the federal government in this matter.
That's an interesting approach. I mean, looking at return on investment, I hope it's effective. I feel like if you look at outcomes for corporations that have DEI policies, there's a good return on investment, and that I think the white supremacist piece tends to override that. But maybe
that is true.
Maybe your presentation has found a way around that. I hope.
Yeah. We want to look at it. So the thing between the DEI and reparations is that DEI does not account for a particular crime. This is some aspirational aspect that the government wants to get to.
Right.
Reparations is because a particular crime was committed by a department within the federal government, and there's continued impact among current living African people, Black people, freedmen, ADOS, as a result of those criminal actions. Mm-hmm. And so reparations is mandatory. And here we're showing that if you do this, there's $2 for every dollar that you put in. That's $4 for every dollar that you put in that you're going to get back to this government. And we have some of those numbers already.
So we got a couple minutes here, Kamm Howard. What's our call to action? Tell us where to find you.
Join the Federal Reparations Advancement Network. Find me at Kamm at reparationsunited.org, or go to reparationsunited.org and leave your information, and let's get to work. It's not over until we say it's over.
It's not over till we stop, right?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, you did that so quickly. We have a minute left. Is H.R. 40 in its latest iteration as presented by Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and Senator Cory Booker have a snowball's chance?
Well, it has a chance if the Democrats win Congress to be voted out of Congress for the first time in its history. We did get it voted out of committee under Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Ayanna Pressley is going to push to get it to the floor for a vote if the Democrats control the Congress. Senate is going to be, it's uphill battle. I don't think we're going to have 60 votes in the Senate, and that's going to be a challenge. Although there are a couple of Republicans now, I think 1 or 2, who are vocalizing, senators who are vocalizing reparations. I don't know if they'll go against their party and vote for it, but that's going to be a challenge congressionally. That's why we're focusing all of our attention on the executive level, executive branch.
Makes sense. I still like it there, though, just symbolically. Just keep it there.
Yes.
Keep it on the table. Yeah. Keep pushing.
Yeah.
Kamm Howard, thank you so much. It's a fascinating conversation, and thanks for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, sister. Great, appreciate it.
Phone lines are wide open if you want to address something you saw or heard or thought about, or talk about something else. 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. You know where you are. Happy Friday. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Alexandria Ikamoni with BIN News Now. Former President Barack Obama argues Americans not to take their freedoms for granted, warning that gerrymandering threatens the foundation of fair elections. This comes as he supports Texas Democrats who left the state to block a GOP redistricting plan.
I think we became a little bit complacent over the years. We assumed that things would continue to get better. Our democracy would become more inclusive, that it would become more fair, that we'd make it easier for people to vote rather than harder for people to vote.
A legal fight over transgender student bathroom access in South Carolina may head to the U.S. Supreme Court. The case centers a transgender student who was denied use of the boys' bathroom during the last school year. Cleveland Browns black rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders is capturing the attention of the nation. It's reported the Browns' win over the Carolina Panthers set the NFL Network preseason viewership record with over 2.2 million tuning in. Get BIN News Now on the iHeartRadio app.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
We're going to find out a lot about the Dodgers this weekend. The first place San Diego Padres are in town tonight to kick off a 3-game series against the Dodgers. The Dodgers, who have lost 4 in a row, and 21 of their last 33 are a game behind the Padres in the NL West. This series could be a turning point for the Dodgers this season. Are they still a championship team, or are they a team with a